Now that we were talking about some pipeline features in Maya, let's talk about how we can fix some hilariously broken scenes. This is an example of a scene you might pick up or a scene you might have made yourself and you've been working on this for days and you haven't really ever cleaned it up. So there are a bunch of unused nodes. You have shaders everywhere not connected to things. You have layers which are just there and you don't know what they are. They don't contain anything at all, different colors, and everything is a mess. So let's talk about how we can fix some of these issues. A first go-to feature is one called file and optimize scene file or scene size. Now, what this is doing, it's not actually optimizing the scene size. What it's doing is it's deleting all unused nodes. So if stuff isn't connected to anything else, then it will straight up delete these nodes. And like we said before, everything in Maya is a node. So a layer is a node, a shader is a node. So if it's an unused node, it doesn't mean it's some weird esoteric data thing going on. This can very much be a modifier, it can be a camera, it can be anything really. So let's see what happens now if we try to use optimize file and optimize scene size. First, it's going to tell us, hey, this isn't undoable. So just make sure your scene is saved as a copy and that you're not completely screwing up anything weird. You got to make sure that if you have complex riggers or something like that, that you don't really do it on this. This should be more for models or, maybe lighting scenes, whatever it might be. So what I want you to notice is I want you to see the shaders here and I want you to notice the layers. So now we click OK. Now you can see most of our shaders went away and most of our layers went away as well. We can also see this if we were to have gone under DAG objects, that we had a lot of stuff just disappear here. Because again, this is where all the nodes in the scene will live. So that's why we use the DAG objects only button, because it goes from looking pretty tight to looking really messy. So now, for instance, you can see we have tons of polyunite, polyseparate, and this here is going to have perhaps thousands of different entries if you have a messy Maya scene. So another thing we're noticing in the scene right now is that we can't really move stuff up and down, and you're wondering what on earth is going on here. Well, that is because we're now sorting alphabetically, and this is something which is quite easy to do by accident, or maybe somebody else has done it for you. And we can go change this if we go to display and sort order, and we set this to seed hierarchy. You can see here, but right now it's set to alphabetical, and you just want to change this to seed hierarchy. And now you can see, now it's back to normal. We can start to middle mouse button, drag stuff away like this. Another thing as well is you can see we have a hell of a lot of groups here. We have so many different things going on, which is completely unnecessary for a scene like this. So what I prefer to do, I select everything, then I hit the hotkey Shift P. Shift P is for unparent everything, which means that everything will now be put out of a group. So Shift P, now you can see what happens. And then we can delete history, Shift Alt and D, and now you can see that everything is going to be cleaning up. You see we have a lot of groups here. This will contain just a transform and all these kind of things. So just select everything, Shift Alt D, and now we get rid of all the groups. Now there's no history or anything. And now if we were to check out the outloader now, you can see how nice and clean this is. It only contains a few things really. So Shift Alt D to delete that. We can also delete layers, which we could do by selecting both of them, layers, and then we can use delete selected layers. And now you can see 2 layer nodes disappeared here as well. We can also use, in the case before, instead of optimize scene size, we could also go in here and set delete unused layers, which would have deleted unused layers. So layers and delete selected layers. And now we can group this. First, just go here in DAG objects, group this, Control G. Now we have everything under one group, and we can call this character underscore group, which makes it nice and clean. We can select the head model, and we can call this, just make sure this is set to head. Eyes, make sure this is set here. And then we can figure out what all the rest of the stuff is. So select everything, Control drag over the eyes and the head. And now we can see that this here would be the teeth. So Control G as well to group this, and we can call this mouth. And then you can name these accordingly to whatever you want to. But at least now it's a clean scene. So there aren't really any problems with this scene right away. What we can also do is that we can check our model if there are any issues with the model. We can do this if you go to Mesh and Clean Up. Now, this is really important that this is one of these cases where you want to actually click on the options. If you click right here, it might do crazy stuff to your model right away. We don't know what it's going to do right away. So make sure that we click on the options. Then we go to Reset, just to make sure nothing crazy is going on. And then you can see here it's set to Clean Up Matching Polygons, which just means that now it's actually going to clean up whatever it finds. It's not going to select it, it's actually going to clean it up, which in some cases, like here, we want to find n-gons. So now let's just set this to select instead, so it doesn't actually destroy anything. And then we set this to faces for more 4 sides. Basically want to figure out if there's any legal topology here. Then we hit apply, and now you can see that it did find faces for more than 4 sides. So now we can go in here, we can fix that. Sometimes it's really hard to figure out where they actually are. So what you can do, you can activate soft selection, hit the B key, and now you can see that they just light up like this. This is particularly prevalent when you're dealing with very heavy scenes. So now you can go in and you can delete this n-gon right here. We also have a triangle as well, which we can delete in the same go. Just shift right mouse button, delete edges and delete edges. Then what we can do as well, just to make sure, is we can set this back to cleanup. Now this is where I actually do want to clean it up, because I want to just check for illegal geometry, not like an n-gon, which we don't want, but it's technically legal, but we want illegal topology, stuff which will not subdivide. So in this case, we can set this to cleanup, and then we disable the n-gons. Now we can go to laminar faces and non-manifold geometry, and this is going to actually clean up our geometry if we have some bad topology. So now we can click apply, and we saw our results. And to see the results, we go into our script editor, and then you can see what happened. Everything you do in Maya is going to print out a statement. So in this case, I said no items found to clean up, which is awesome. It means right now there weren't any issues with it. But just be aware that we have a script editor as well, which is really useful when it comes to checking error messages, whatever it might be. Here, for instance, you can see whenever we select something, you can see select our head, select the eyes, whatever it might be. So you can just see it's just printing out whatever we just did. One issue you might have as well is that you can't find your gizmo, or it's crazy big or it's crazy small. But gizmo, I mean this guy here. So what has probably happened is that you've hit the plus key a few times, and you can see that it becomes impossibly big when you do that. Or you hit the minus key a few times and it becomes super tiny. And it's impossible to actually work with. So you can use the plus and minus key. This is just on a numpad, just so you can make it smaller or bigger. So, you want to keep it something which is actually manageable. Another one is that you might be missing this menu here. It might look like this, and you're like, didn't I used to have a menu right here somewhere? And that's because you have hit the hotkey Shift and M. You can see now Shift and M to show it. So this is just one of these things which just happens. Another one which we talked about in the first chapter is control in space, which is expert mode or full screen view. So control in space just means that you can now go back and forth between these two modes. There is also a case sometimes in Maya where everything is just completely screwed up. Like rendering doesn't work, you can't select objects, everything is just wrong and you have no idea why. And this could be because there is just something wrong with the preferences. And the way we can fix this is we can delete the preferences. If we go to Documents, Maya 2020, or whatever version you're using, there is a folder here called Prefs. And this here contains all of your preferences. It contains your hotkeys, it contains workspaces, all this kind of stuff, all your marking menus. And sometimes weird stuff is added to your preferences. So the single best tip I have for making sure Maya works again is to delete this entire folder. It looks dramatic, but whenever you launch Maya again, a new folder will pop up. Now keep in mind, this here does kill your hotkeys and whatever you customize in Maya. So you will be back to basically vanilla Maya. But if you want to preserve, for instance, hotkeys, you can easily export those out, or you can export out your workspaces as well. So deleting your preferences, I'm just going to do this because I like my preferences. Deleting your preferences is a magical button for fixing everything in Maya.